Well, kia ora and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, the fourth in the Retail Reboot series. So with the aim of helping you adjust and thrive in this new environment, particularly now as we've moved into level 2 and beyond. So my name is Sarah Dodds and I'm a lecturer in retail and marketing at Massey University. Many of you, if you've been seeing the previous webinars, have seen my colleague Andrew Murphy. So today we are looking at retail store experiences and really looking at how to resume trading in store in a safe yet appealing and inspiring way to customers. So along with all the processes that you've needed to follow to ensure your store is safe for your employees and your customers, you're going to have to need to balance this with a shopping environment that still inspires and engages your shoppers. So our speakers today are here to give you some tips on how to do that. So our speakers are renowned experts in retail and in particularly in designing and optimizing retail spaces. So I'd really like to warmly welcome Juanita Neville-Toledo and Lisa Donaldson of Retail X. And I'd also like to thank these two wonderful women in Retail X, not only for supporting these webinars, but the retail industry as a whole. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Juanita. So over to you.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and welcome everyone this morning to this webinar, and welcome to level 2. We've left the madness, or maybe not, we have new madness ahead of us. And this morning we're going to explore Retail Reboot, how we reopen and move forward in our retail new normal. And it's really interesting if you think about your own behaviour over level 3 and level 2. If you're anything like me, level 3 started on the day of my birthday, and I ended up in an hour-and-a-half queue to get into a KFC, which is something I would never do in my normal life. What Lisa and I are going to talk about this morning is how do we reopen and resume trading and what is now our new retail normal. And if you're anything like us, you've been doing some weird, crazy stuff over the last few weeks. Stuff you may have never done before, and that's what our customers are like and what they're experiencing as well. There's a whole lot of emotions that go on, functional, rational, and just plain silly. But as a result, this is going to impact our shopping behaviour. And if an example to exhibit what happened was my mother-in-law, who'd never ever touched online shopping previously, had to purchase her washing machine online. We had to help her do that, but this was someone who had never even used online banking previously. So what we'll see is a number of behaviours changing, and this ultimately impacts the retail environment and experience. Customers generally go on a very strange and varied journey of how they purchase with you in retail, depending on how they think, feel, say or do at any point in time. It could be as a result of a need or getting a piece of communication that's inspired them to reach in and lean into your products. But what Lisa will talk about a little bit further on is how this has actually changed and new elements of our customer journey has emerged. And these are things that we really need to consider within a total retail environment that includes every aspect and touch point that actually gets a customer to their final destination of purchasing from you. But the things that remain constant in delivering a retail experience are what we call our triangle of success. And that's finding the sweet spot between the rational, the functional, and the emotional drivers that inspires a customer to lean into your retail. And at the moment when we react and think, my God, what are we going to do? We needed to open last Thursday. We were waiting to see what the government was going to say were our ways to comply in level 2, is that a lot of us focus really on those operational aspects and the communication. But there's also a whole lot that we need to consider as well around products and services to really still deliver a cohesive retail experience. That's the rational, the functional, and the emotional elements of what actually makes a really good shopping experience. So what we thought we would do is we'd go out into retail and actually see what happened. Look, it was a very, very short period of time for retailers to respond. And even if you did want to buy or print anything. You still needed to get into the line to be able to get it produced, because some of those operators were still not functioning under level 3. But when we went out, it was really interesting and unsurprising. What we saw is that every retailer was killing COVID with hand sanitizer. And we saw hand sanitizer in every way, shape or form, some of it looking beautiful, integrated into our retail experiences, some shouting, and some just smelling like really, really bad toilets. But it was all there, so we felt safe as a result of it. If there was a first thing that we walked into, it was always supplemented with a safety station. Now, these safety stations did a number of things. They created a moment to pause and consider what needed to be done. There was also ways to check in for contact tracing, which in fact, as we all know, changed overnight for a number of reasons, notwithstanding the privacy aspect of someone being able to take a photo of all your details on a piece of paper. But the other thing these did, which is really important to consider, should it change at all again, is what information you're asking of the customer and how safe they feel in giving that to you, and what blocks you're creating in the retail environment. And if you look at that typo example, what you can see there is by having to check in, and the place that we've done is we've created a barrier. And what you'd see 9 times out of 10 where these stations were placed, were creating a wall, which meant shoppers didn't want to cross the lease line. So it's something very important to consider. Likewise, that most of your shoppers aren't midgets. Now, if you have a look at these stations in particular, and I'm short of those of you who know me, I had to get down on my knees to be able to write in these books. So really considering that shopper experience. And also, does the person really need a magnifying glass and to give the cord blood of their first child to enter the store? Just making it simple and seamless. So, as I mentioned previously, we've got a wall of created through barriers such as app sign-in, block and entry. But we had others who have utilised apps and made it actually incredibly easy and effective to manage my time. They've thought about me as a shopper, and this is what the supermarkets cottoned onto very early. And New World, with their implementation of the Easy 1, 2, 3 check-in, meant that if I sent a text, I was given a wait time, and then I went to a concierge. I knew exactly how long I could stay in my car. I would send an additional text to tell me that I could enter at any time in the next 10 minutes. I went to the concierge and I went in with ease. And I think these are incredibly important things when people are very emotional. It's how that you can make them feel safe and help give them that ease of entry going, I'm actually meant to be here and I feel okay. Because the one thing that struck us when we were walking around the streets on sort of the weekend and Thursday and Fridays, it felt very post-apocalyptic. You felt, should I be here? Is this responsible? Is this safe? And we really do want to encourage our shoppers to get back out there and enter into our store. One of the other things we saw a lot of outside of the hand sanitizers and the stations and the apps was monitoring numbers and change rooms. Now, with the monitoring of numbers into store, it was really wide and varied. We saw stores that had small footprints, looking like they could have a ridiculous number of people, such as Swarovski, where we went down the road, a similar footprint store would only let 3 people in, and this one would let 15, to something like Torpedo 7 in Newmarket, which is a much wider space. So thinking about what are those cues that actually feel a customer believe they're in a comfortable, safe environment. One of the other challenges is around change rooms. We spoke to the people at H&M and they made a decision not to open their fitting rooms for the reason that they'd have to continue to reclaim them. Then also the concerns around quarantining stock and sanitizing them. So what better solution than to just let customers run wild? And this is the situation that you can see in the photo where people created their own fitting rooms. Everyone's still touching the product. Where a better solution would have been, how could we manage this so the customers feel safe and they're not flashing themselves amongst the store? The other thing that became incredibly apparent was the come back in, we've got a sale offer to get you across our lease line. Now, look, in the times that I was in corporate retail, I've got to admit this is something I would have done as well. A welcome back. But we just need to be incredibly careful in these coming months that we don't default to just providing discounts. It's unsustainable, and it is a degree of drug that retailers start to rely on, and we get this unbelievably giddy drop, not only in profitability, but our ability to maintain sales. And we saw that in the GFC. So there's many ways that you can add value, but as we've seen here is there are new levels of percentages such as 30, look, I've seen as high as 40% off. We just have to be very careful with how we do that. As we ventured through further, what we also started to see was a massive degree of information overload, so much so that sometimes you didn't know where to look. Did I need a magnifying glass? Should I get myself a cup of tea to read this? And if you look at the very bottom one with all that copy, that's at Ruby. Now, if any of you are familiar with Ruby, it's incredibly funky. That's where the millennials go. And anyone who is lined up to go into that store is likely taking a selfie of themselves. So having all that copy is not really considering who your customer is and how to engage with them. So we must really think about over these following months how we do communicate in a way that's relevant and appropriate for what we want a customer to think, feel, say, or do. The other interesting thing, which I haven't put a photo in, is that sometimes there are additional requirements. And as we went into Sephora, they utilise international guidelines, and Chemist Warehouse did the same thing, where they actually took people's temperature. Now, this can feel quite invasive, but on the other hand, also feel quite comforting that they're not going to let anyone potentially in with a temperature, a suntan, or COVID-19. The other places that really surprised us were big boxes. Now there were, well, when I say big boxes, not a traditional big box, but a larger footprint like a department store. Now Smith & Co. had no fanfare whatsoever. There was a wee open message and a little tiny thing of hand sanitizer with no fanfare. And for a facility that could host any number of guests, as well as a heap of staff, the expectation, I think, as a shopper to know that actually you've taken this seriously and we want to see something visually around this. So it's a nice balance between giving good information, relevant information, and also enough information. When we moved to level 2, there were still some stores that simply didn't open. A lot of them were Australian-based retailers such as Country Road and Trenery and Witchery. And what we surmise is a couple of things, because some of these stores were already reopened in Australia, is they actually just wanted to get themselves together. They probably anticipated from what they'd seen in Australia that the foot traffic was going to be pretty light to start with, and they have to get their staffing levels and procedures right. And look, that's one way of operating, but it's also worth considering what are your trading hours going to be like moving forward, because customers will give you a bit of latitude with their expectations, and I'm not quite sure we're all running back to do 24-hour shopping anytime soon. So there's something really important to consider over the next few weeks, and we are already seeing some retailers starting to close on a Monday. So you're going to have to work out what's right for you. But what makes a significant difference, and it seems logical and illogical both at once, is having human touch, not necessarily physically, but someone to give you that warm smile, to make you feel welcome, to explain the policies and procedures, and really make a demonstration of welcoming you back. And if there's someone we had to give a round of applause to, as farmers who managed the entries into their store incredibly well. They generally had people over the age of 25, people who are robust with their ability to handle customers who might want to complain or be concerned, and they really did make you feel genuinely welcome. They asked you about your day, look, there weren't a hell of a lot of shoppers around, walked through how they were operating, their care and consent, and this is going to be critically important. any retailer that can give that customer a warm smile and that personalized welcome will be a winner in making a customer feel not only welcome but safe and secure. But it is really important to make sure that we train our staff on how to do this, because I feel sorry for some young lass in Sterling Sports when I refused to sign the contact register that wanted all of my details. She was clearly visibly shaken. I didn't even put on my angry voice, but she just wasn't equipped to deal with someone saying, no, I don't need to do that. That's not a requirement. So we do have to train our people for that. 5 stars goes to Glassons on the day we were there. If they made coming back into store a brand celebration of sorts, celebrating in a way what their brand was, what they were doing, what they were encouraging, and just the simple little pink X's on the line made you feel a part of their community, talking to the lovely lass on the front door and then entering the store. They had a nice balance of information as well as stock. They had moved some of their racking to make it easier to go and navigate the store. And they were back in business. And I think they should be congratulated on what they did. And they congratulated customers as well on all their effort. So what we've seen perhaps indicates that, yes, there was a lot of uncertainty. So retailers were on the back foot. But what we do know moving forward, and it really is about moving forward and what the future is that what will make the difference right now, what we all need, what we often always need in a time of crisis is human touch. Just 1 to 2 meters away, but being able to connect with customers is going to be really important. And that's what physical retail does. It provides something that digital doesn't. It provides an experience, a personal experience that touches your heart, your mind, and your wallet. And so we need to make sure that we're equipped with the right levels of staff that's responsible for our trading, but also to make our customers feel welcome. And they will need some help in being welcome, because there's a lot of motivations that impact their decision making right now. They're really being incredibly cautious. They're controlling what they do and spend and save. And it comes from a number of areas that we've seen in other times of crisis. And the first one, which is really obvious, is fear of the unknown. Fear of, will it come back? Fear, will I catch this COVID? Fear of what's all this stuff on my hands. The other thing is the financial insecurity. We haven't even come close to seeing the bottom of what's going to happen. Yeah, we may have had some mates that have lost their jobs or they've had a pay cut, but the wave of impact is still to come, and people will be cautious around watching what they do and don't spend. Health and well-being has also become a real focus, because gosh, we got out there each day and walked and understood just how important that was to our sanity. And now there's a real focus on our mental well-being. So the way that you can help encourage and connect with that in your community, your retail community, is really going to help customers understand that you get where they're at and what they're going through. And doing this in an authentic and relevant way will continue a relationship. And this is a relationship that needs to last a while. It's not about just shaking money out of people to get them up shopping. We will have a bit of JOMO going around, the joy of missing out. I haven't bought a coffee since COVID-19. My credit card shows me that I'm not going to again either. And I think many of us have gone, oh my God, what happens if I can just miss out on this or that? And that is going to impact how we come back and respond in the retail market. And likewise, the cocooning that we had, it was really lovely being with our family when we didn't want to strangle them, but we enjoyed that time together where we got to maybe watch a Friday night movie instead of everyone being on a different device and a different screen. And as a result of that cocooning, we've gone back to things that make us feel comfortable and homely. And there's an opportunity for that in the types of products that we sell and amplify in our space. And finally, the other motivation that's going to impact decision making is endurance. And what that is we know we're in this for the long run, not the short run, that it's not about just flicking back to old behaviours. And as a result, we need to go on that journey with our customers, and the way that we talk, and the way that we make sure we have the right products for them, and the way that we just don't ignore what they're feeling. Because it's been an incredibly interesting time when we have come back together, and going back out needs to make sure that we feel welcome and a part of your retail community. So finally, before I pass over to Lisa, there are a number of things that you can do when thinking about your retail solutions, even before we get into how you set up your store, that will help you survive and prosper. Retailers need to attitudinally change as fast as their customers do. And we know customers can be crazy. And we are ourselves. So you really have to keep your ear to the ground. You need to watch and listen and learn. And if we think back pre-COVID, we got really good at being in our own belly buttons at time and sprinting our marathon. But if now more than ever is a time to make sure you connect with your customers, that you help them be responsible as well, not just, dangling carrots to try and get their cash, but understand what their behaviours are doing and making sure that we present our offers in a way that make them feel like they're not spinning out of control. We need to make them feel safe, but not in a way that actually makes them feel paranoid. And you need to lead in your community. And when I say your community, that's your community of shoppers. Now is the time that more than ever that you need to know who your shopper is and connect with them and be there for them, communicate with them, tell them your stories, listen to their stories. And that's a way that retail will continue to prosper. Retail, physical retail isn't going anywhere. Don't ignore, listen to those headlines that said, oh, we're all going online. Sure, the big positive out of COVID-19 is that there is more digital retail happening and more people have moved there. But retail experiences are meant to be different to digital. They provide an experience, they amplify what your brand is, and they give you that one-to-one human touch that you can't get in digital. So you need to make sure you embrace that and right-size your experience accordingly. So with that, I'll hand over to Lisa, who's going to talk about how we pivot in our new normal.
Okay, so we've reviewed all of the opportunities, I guess, and the work that everyone's been doing in the last little while around signage and getting everything ready to trade in level 2. So we've all been beavering away doing that, but I guess it's quite timely to now have a little look and think about what we're going to do in our new normal and the future of retail, and some things that need to be worked through and some opportunities that are going to present themselves and how we can handle them going forward. Our approach today is kind of broken into 5 core themes, starting with on my terms. Now, Juanita spoke about that a little bit in the beginning, so I'm going to just touch on that again because it's so important. That's very much around this frictionless retail that everyone expects from us now. And the next thing after that is reimagining your retail footprint in your space. And because of that, there's 3 other areas that we're going to delve into, which is dark stores, web showrooming and collaboration, which all comes back to opportunities around creating space and a little bit of detail on how you can do that to ensure that we can take our new footprints forward. So let's kick on into it. The first slide that we've got here is, as I said, on my terms. Now, my learned colleague Juanita, she's been speaking about on my terms for many years now, and it's very much around frictionless retail and how shopping how, where, and whenever I want. So very much on my terms. Retail had already been going under a massive transformation with the growth of online, and mobile shopping really created an omni-channel retail environment, and customers were shopping from home and on the move, in stores, moving seamlessly between digital and physical world. They were already doing that, but not as I guess aggressively as we've seen in the last little while. This pandemic, I guess, has given us a real new insight and really turbocharged the digitalization of our retail behaviors and our journeys. So I guess the key thing now is customers want to shop online, in store, and a combination of the two. And we really need to make sure we can accommodate their needs in order to succeed and move forward. So we saw this slide a little bit earlier with Juanita, and it was around our customer journey, and it's very much a ping pong, or it has been a very much ping pong anyway, from all the touch points that the customer interacts with. And it does result, in a couple of physical manifestations in store, like visiting the store and click and collect, but everything else and the ping pong was around digital. I think from the pandemic perspective and level 2 and COVID-19 and all that thing, we've now got a whole lot of other opportunities, or a whole lot of other things thrown into the mix of the customer journey. So we've got things like contactless pickup. So, the convenience of having to go and get your groceries, but ensuring there's a contactless service there. A curbside pickup, who wants to get out of their car and on a rainy day and go and collect their goods when someone will bring it to your door. A drive-through, also an opportunity for a lot of people been putting in drive-throughs when they've got the footprint to be able to do that, to again help with that convenience and contactless requirements. Queueless pickups. No one likes to wait for anything. I'm certainly one of those people. So when we can get a text message and tell us that the time that we can be there to pick something up is also really important. Delivery, a lot of people have been doing deliveries from necessity, but it will also become to be sort of expected that we can get our goods in a timely manner. So maybe people are taking on delivery services rather than lending things out to the couriers. Concierge, when it also highlighted that the concierge is a really critical part in that experience and navigating customers and teaching them about their new script. And that can really make or break a journey. So that's an important aspect of the new updated 2020 journey. And then virtual sales assistant. That's a bit of a new one that's been coming through. A lot of the fashion stores have been doing that, where a touch point in the journey is actually a FaceTime call with a sales assistant in store, and they're physically showing the product versus you going in, and they can have a conversation around its fit and the fabric and the feel and all kinds of things which you miss with that pure digital transaction. So a lot of different ways that we have to now integrate into our existing footprints, which is really going to be quite challenging. I think the key thing from this sort of perspective is that all of these things that we've been doing for our customers to get through this last little while will now be our new normal. And we have to be prepared for that, because we also may need to pivot at any time. The lockdown levels may change again, and it's an opportunity for us to actually really streamline and personalize these processes and make sure that they're embedded into our business. A, because first and foremost, the customers expect that frictionless interaction with your brand, but also B, because you may need them again, so they might as well be part of your framework. So we need to plan for that now. This slide says 3, but it's actually 2, so a little typo there on my behalf. But what we're talking about here is imagining space. So from that first topic, understanding that we've got all of these new touch points that we want to put into store, it's really going to be quite critical for us to reimagine the space that we have and to make some room to put some of these touch points in, and really challenge our physical stores to ensure we're getting the best return on our investments. We need to make sure that we use our space profitably. It's a 101 from a retail perspective, is make sure that you get the most bang for your buck from your retail square meterage. And there's so many new journey touch points that we actually do need to create a little bit more space. And there's a few reasons for that. So it might be that we want to find a permanent location for click and collect in store. It might be we need lockers, or if that's going to be the touch point that's best for your customers. Or it could be that we're going to continue with contactless pickup or drive-through potentially. So other services that customers have engaged with that work really well for your brand. And they may need more of a permanent location in your store, permanent signage, all of those types of things. It could be that your business is actually going off from an online perspective, and actually customers aren't physically visiting your bricks and mortar sites as much as they used to, but you do need more space in those locations to actually fulfill your orders, to get a little bit of a packing area to make sure that you're maintaining that physical distance for your team, but also just to deal with the volume of stock and deliveries that are coming and going. And to enable more than one customer in your store at a time and observe social distancing requirements, you may actually have to rethink your store layout and reduce some of the fixtures and merchandising in the store to create a little bit more space around for people to move freely. but you don't want to actually go out and hire more storage to be able to put your stock in a different location. So we need to think differently how we merchandise to create that space. Your sales may have been seriously disrupted, or you may have been forced to consolidate some of your sites or close some of your business functions. So you really need to look at your network and maybe consolidate some of those services into key areas as you look to free up your assets. And conversely, there may be just an abundance of space that's available out there at really reasonable rents at the moment. And it's a really key opportunity for you to grow your business. But in this time, you really don't want to overinvest. So you're looking for other ways to do that. And so the next topics that we're going to talk about all tie back to these opportunities so that we can give you some tangible touch points and ideas and opportunities on how to make them come to life. So the first thing that I guess we really need you to do when you are considering about reusing your footprint is look at it really differently. We want to make sure that you review your footprint before you make any decisions. It's quite a critical aspect. So walking your store is the first thing. It's easy to walk your store and look at it, I guess, with the same eyes that you've always done or missed things. So putting on your different coloured shopper glasses or thinking things from a really solution-based perspective will be important to finding the right opportunities for you going forward. The other thing that is quite timely to do is to review your source sales by category and subcategory. 80% of your sales come from 20% of your range. And that's quite a well-known scenario out there. So we often load our stock with, variety because we want to have a breadth of range. But actually, when you need to rationalise what you are presenting in store, that's a really good scenario to look at and review your source sales. And it may enable you to reduce your footprint and create space accordingly. Also looking for space through better utilisation of your fixtures and your wall space and merchandising. So you might want to remove some fixtures to help create space. Maybe you can use your wall profiles in different ways, or use a fixture in a more in a different manner than you've been doing currently to make sure that you can get extra stock out. So that's another way to look at some of your footprint. And then the last one, which is really quite critical, is if you do have more than one store, is really challenging your thinking about your store network and how you use it, and considering the length of your leases so that it gives you flexibility to make decisions ahead of time so you're not caught short, and then really analysing your demographic, your location, and the access that you have to those locations and how you could use them to your advantage, and potentially maybe using those stores to help with online, or sites to help with online fulfillment and delivery. So that's a little bit of thought on the old space utilisation. And I think the key thing that we want to get across here is it's really important to plan now for change, because the change will definitely be coming. The second, which is now the third, is the dark stores. So after we've been talking about space, you might be interested to have a look at things in a different way. Dark stores are actually traditionally retail stores that were converted to local fulfillment centres. And if you've been watching the retail news lately, you would have seen that Countdown's done quite a lot of work on their whole online fulfillment to meet demand. They've opened their first online only store, so absolutely no customers going on that site, and you'll see an image of it down here on the right hand side. If we're mirrors, I'm not sure how that works, but anyway, it's down there where my little mouse is going around. And I guess the key point of difference with a dark store is that there's no customers, there's no checkouts, there's less point of sale and advertising material, and it gives the opportunity for a real concentrated effort on online fulfillment, which has been really critical in this time. And that will only increase. And the fulfillment centres are very much an important part of how your network distribution will go, and the selection of those locations need to be in a convenient access points to all of the your online shopping trends and where people are shopping most. The dark stores are the future. I think many people think they are. especially if you have a larger network. But there is actually some opportunities for you as a smaller network, which we're going to talk through with some of the other strategies in a minute, around how you can use your stores differently to be able to fulfill your orders a little bit more effectively. I guess the benefits of the dark stores are that it gives you additional capacity. It allows you to present a full range because you don't have to necessarily have as many facings as you would in a retail environment. It gives you great availability, increased efficiencies, which is always a great one, improved picking and accuracy, obviously enhanced quality. A 24/7 operation, you can run this building at any time you want to, and makes it really easy to plan your deliveries from that perspective. And I guess the key thing here really is the safety of employees and customers, particularly when you have essential goods going out all the time. So a dark store may be an opportunity for the future for some of you. The next little topic that we're on here is around web and showrooming. So I guess what it does is gives an opportunity to look at the way we merchandise and present our product in a different way. And it's around showcasing product and really maximizing the brand experiences that people have with you, and also giving them accessibility to product so they can touch and feel. But this can be done with a reduced cost, and that's what we're going to explore right now. So showrooming and web rooming have been around for a while now, and showrooming was very much around pure play retailers recognizing that they need to have bricks and mortar experiences. And they offered showrooms which have just product in them, and you would do your touch and feel and your interaction with the product in store, and then you would be expected to leave the store, no opportunity to purchase the product, and you would go home and purchase online. So a bit of fault there in that perspective. And then along came web rooming, which I guess is preferred over showrooming from a customer perspective, as it doesn't limit my shopping ability. So it gives me opportunities to be frictionless and definitely shop on my terms. Customers do want a physical touch point in store. That's definitely where we've got to with this journey. And they don't want to pay for shipping. They don't want to wait for product to be delivered necessarily. They want the flexibility of choice. And I think that's really the key thing. You know, if you want to return an item yourself, then you should be able to do that. And certainly if you can touch and feel the product in store, you want to be able to buy it. So for the future, web rooming and showrooming kind of merge, and it gives us an opportunity to do something really quite important for future retail. And there's the perfect storm, I guess, of these things coming to the fore. Showrooming is quite critical for the space aspect because it allows stores to do smaller footprints. By showrooming, you only have one product facing out and the sizes and colour variants. You don't have to have the backup stock all on the floor. And I think as retailers, before online became so much a part of our psyche, we were very much put all the stock on the floor, don't have a reserve, make sure you can make your retail footprints as large as possible. So this is sort of being turned around again, and now it's more around an opportunity to do the showrooming and present product in a way that people will find very engaging. It gives you an opportunity to focus on your customer experience and your service because you're not restocking the shelves all the time. It gives us an opportunity to attract a younger market. Our millennials were so connected to their devices that this gave them an opportunity to interact with product again while still being very connected to the devices when they were purchasing. It also gives an opportunity for our male consumers to get into the stores. They like the fact that they can just pick up an item, know that it's one colour selection and choice, and then if there's an opportunity for them to keep purchasing that because they know it's their size, and it makes it much easier for them. And then obviously growing brand awareness. That's a really cool opportunity around showrooming. You can do different things around events and promoting your brand because you've got a little bit more space and experience to be able to do that, which isn't so full of stock. Then if we add and overlay some of the things that we've learned from web rooming, things like purchasing on my term, making in-store purchases, immediate collection, product trials, and all the other things that we've been doing as part of our journey of learning in this last little while, that then becomes a really tangible element to take us into the retail future. So our future retail, by creating a new sort of a showroom, is that we've got space for growth to implement some of those new customer journey touch points that we talked about, because we're going to need to embed those in our physical store for the future. Also, space for us to do our social distancing and protect our staff and customers. And I think probably the key thing here is that because we could go back into a lockdown mode at any time, it is definitely something we need to think about for the future, not just for the next few weeks. It also gives us a chance to do sample stock versus inventory, which is the ultimate in contactless sourcing. So it keeps everything really pristine and fresh going out. Very good for people concerned with where it's been and how it's been handled. And the final thing that it gives us a really great opportunity to do is reduce costs and overheads. So that's pretty cool. Now, how do you start to do this? Well, I guess the key thing here is if we're doing a merged web room and a showroom and a future retail, is that you want to look to reduce your front of house area so it doesn't take up as much space, and actually increase the size of your stock rooms, which is pretty much flies in the face of all the things we've been told about square meterage utilisation over the years. But it is an interesting way to look at things, and I think it will give us really neat opportunities to solve problems going forward. Now, make sure I press the right button. The fifth thing that I've got to talk to you about today is collaboration. So we've talked about the fact that we've got all these journeys, and we've talked about the fact that we've got space challenges and using our space differently. And we've had a little look at some, extreme measures, some dark stores for people with large networks, and then web and showrooming for some of the smaller retailers or more bespoke retailers who want to do a mix of those things in one footprint. I guess the next opportunity is to look at, when we've got problems, how we solve them and how we can pull together as a community or with common goals to get the results that we want. So why collaborate? I think we all know this is the challenging environment, so it's definitely an opportunity to foster some collaboration and become essential. It will become essential to our retail business and survival. When you're considering collaborations, I think it's really important to find solutions that solve customers' problems. Often in the past, people would do a collaboration and it was odd. It didn't make sense to the customers. And one that I've noticed recently, well, maybe not even that recently, seeing as I haven't gone anywhere, but it was the chips, the proper chips, and a Trellis Cooper's brand to the chips. And it's sort of like, well, this hasn't really solved a problem, and I'm not sure that I'm going to buy those chips. So that's not really a collaboration that's actually adding value. Whereas the hyper meat, if anyone's with a hyper meat, just those guys just pulled together. We had a company that couldn't use their vehicles, and then we had people who wanted to get meat delivered, and bam, you've got a solution for customers, and especially in times where supermarkets were overwhelmed. So those are the type of collaborations that actually help solve people's problems. The other thing that you can use collaborations for really successfully is to share resources, especially space. So where maybe someone has excess space and they need to downsize their range because the inventory's control, it needs to change. And you've got a person who wants to potentially grow their brand because they are actually doing very well, but they don't want the risk of investment, which can be quite scary at these times. No one really wants to go and put a lot of money into something that is so uncertain. So that's a really good way to use collaboration effectively. The other thing that you could use collaboration for really successfully would be to help with distribution. So for example, I might have a really big car park, and I need, there's a retailer who's got mutually beneficial brands, and I could provide perhaps a drive-through or collection point for them in my car park. So there's many, many different ways to think about collaboration, but now is the time that getting together with like-minded individuals in our retail community could actually solve a myriad of problems for us all. So with any good partnership, you need to make sure that you think about things that will complement your relationship. So offering goods that complement each other and don't compete, I think is really quite critical, very obvious, but that still needs to be the same. And that you're targeting the same customer, so they have to be on the same level, the same demographic, age group, interests, community is really important. And making sure that there's a benefit for the customer, as I said, looking for solutions. And when you have to get down to nitty-gritty, is make sure that you've got a smooth process and reach agreement for those desired outcomes, so that you've got a strong working relationship going forward. And that should make it pretty successful. So that brings me to the end of my 5 little bits and pieces. How are we doing for time?
Good, but I'm going to jump in because there's stuff. When Lisa and I talk together, I always jump in and talk over.
She does. She's been dying to, no doubt.
Dying to, but I've made a few notes that just to reinforce some of the things that Lisa has said. Look, right here and now, we've got this thing which is called COVID cloud cover. COVID has given us an opportunity to give us the cloud cover to do stuff we've been wanting to do for a while. And you may have faced a little bit of opposition internally. If we have a look, for example, of what happened in the digital space, as they say, who drove your digital transformation? Was it your CEO? Was it your CIO? No, it was COVID. COVID drove that digital transformation. And it's also going to drive some of the retail transformation. When Lisa was talking about things like dark stores, you might go, look, I'm just tiny. I'm tiny, or I'm a mid-range, mid-size. But what that philosophy and thinking is around 2 things. One is right-sizing your network. If ever there was a time when you can right-size your network and also move towards localization of range, is now. Many within this would have, if you've got a large or medium-sized footprints, know that demographically or attitudinally or behaviourally, your stores do act a little bit differently. So if you apply some of those philosophies, you can then look at hub and spoking. You can re-investigate logistics with cross-docking. You may not necessarily get across the line changes to your back of house, but how you actually conduct and transfer and move product, as opposed to having it all on the shop floor, will be entertained at this point in time by even CEOs who are a little bit traditional. The other thing with this COVID cloud cover is thinking about, your store, you'll see the headlines, physical retail's gone, and you'll have board members saying, let's shut the stores and let's go digital only. I sit in some of those board meetings where you roll your eyes and smack your head silently. Physical retail is one of the largest and most vibrant manifestations of your brand. Right-sizing your networks and having an experience that amplifies what you're about is still going to be the way that we continue to engage shoppers' hearts, minds and souls. We have to remember we're in New Zealand with a population of 5 million. We're not the UK. We drive places. We pick stuff up. We don't have to catch the tube. Likewise with New York. So our behaviour, some of those behaviours still manifest in a way that we seek entertainment, for argument's sake, in large shared spaces, which often coexist with retail. So I'm not sticking my head in the ground. Physical retail is here to stay, but it's going to be different. So when you think about what's going to be different, the third thing that popped into my mind as Lisa was talking is the power for the customer is in their hands. So thinking about our physical experiences as the interaction we have with our customers whenever, wherever, or however. So the app in your hand, the ability to check prices, the ability to check stock, those type of things are critically important, features and benefits. Even, God forbid, we're going to let our staff members use their own phones to look up information and not worry that they're going to be on Facebook and Instagram. That's the way we start to empower experiences. So that's going to be really important to how we amplify. And if you've ever been we think of one of the best Nike Store of Innovation in New York, you can shop however you want in that store. You can do it all by yourself, check yourself out, talk to a staff member, look up the latest product, the top 10, whole bunch of things. And that appeals to customers, because one day you're in a mood to chat and seek advice, and other days you just want the damn shoes in the right color. So really think about how we can do that. And there are a number of other follow-on benefits as a result, especially around team optimization, team engagement, and customer engagement. The last area was Lisa talked about collabs in particular, and the hypermeet, which was really interesting because there were two mates that came together with the idea. If you're wanting to think of something a little bit more mainstream, whilst this is an Australian example, is Minettas. Minettas is a really large seafood distribution retailer, seafood retailer. They have moved into bread, meat, produce, all collaborations with like-minded businesses that fit with their brand aesthetic. If you go into Newmarket, you could go into the Cheetah Design Store, which now has a Daily Bread, and Daily Bread fits with and is very complementary to the attitudinal and behavioural elements of their type of customer. So what we're doing there is bringing in more foot traffic more regularly for your coffee or your very delicious, expensive bread in an environment that does fit with the attitudes and behaviours of those shoppers. So I just wanted to add those few things to support what Lisa had said. But now we have some questions. And I'm going to start at the top. Lisa, have you got your questions there as well?
Because I'm still on the screen.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what they are. I'll facilitate that. Is that okay?
Yes.
Brilliant. Now, the first question we had, and please keep them coming, we love this stuff, is that the question says, now that many retailers are facing closure, for example, Burger King, what can be done to create a point of difference in the cluttered New Zealand retail marketplace? I am a retailer. Oh, no, that's the next one. I'm going to split those. I think they are different. So, look, I could talk for ages about Burger King. Burger King, well, I'm going to for a minute, so you've got to bear with me. So Burger King isn't closing because it's a cluttered marketplace. Burger King faced issues because it didn't remain relevant for the customer. But if you think over the last few months, it became incredibly relevant with its new vegetarian Whopper. I was trying to think what it was called, if anyone remembers, but that became incredibly relevant and engaged with a lot of customers. What Burger King hadn't done for the last few years, however, is remain relevant in keeping their restaurants clean, invigorated, training their staff, but more importantly in the QSR, which is a quick service restaurant environment, limited time offers and new news is critically important. They hadn't done that well. Burger King is a great brand which I hope will continue to survive. But what do you need to do to create a point of difference? I think there's three things which might sound a bit peace, love and mung beans, but you need to be authentic. You need to also be relevant. And Lisa, what's the other one I always talk about? Authentic, relevant, and something that'll come to my mind in a minute. But authenticity. Customers can tell when you're talking shit. You need to really connect with who your brand is and actually have some story about it, some storytelling. Why is it that I'm going to cross your lease line to come and look at your stuff? Especially if it's stuff I can get anywhere else, there'll be a reason I want to come to you. You curate it better, you choose better, you're funky and cool, you're the expert, you've got the depth and breadth of range, you search the world. There will be something that drives in your passion that you can bring to the fore. Relevant is if you have a product, why is it important to me as a customer? So you have to be able to talk about those features and those benefits and the product with passion, not just, stack it high, watch it fly and hope for the best. I'll remember the third one in a minute, but we're going on to the next question, which Lisa, you can do. It says, I am a retailer. However, I cannot afford distinctive branding and signage for my store. Can I replace distinctive branding with a Facebook page?
Well, I guess the key thing there is Facebook is just one tiny element of all of your connected journeys with your customer. So no, you can't replace your brand experience with Facebook. It has to be just one part of all the things that you do. I do understand though, like it can be so challenging especially when retail trading is tough, to do all the things that you want to do. But there are some things that don't really cost any money, and that's service. So first and foremost, give the best service, the most outstanding service that people want to come back to you no matter what, because that's the key thing about your brand and why people engage with you in the first place. It's not because of the sign on the outside of the door. And sometimes actually having something a little bit more quirky in terms of your retail footprint can actually be really engaging and will draw people in. So you just got to work on those things and make it like the benefit of it. And merchandising is something also that doesn't cost any money. It just takes time. Granted, there's a little bit of skill that's involved, but at least there's a lot of things that you can look at online to give you examples of what good looks like. And also, you know yourself when you've gone into a retailer and the merchandise leaps off the shelf and into your bag and comes home with you, that there's obviously some learnings that you can take from those things as well. So we've got service, we've got merchandising, and then the other thing would just be embracing something that maybe you can do to help drive your real fundamentals. So whilst it might not be fancy branding and things, like maybe actually it is a clipboard with a little ticket on that you've handwritten, because that shows your personality, and you'll engage with a customer from the things that Juanita was just talking about with your authenticity. So you're not trying to be something that you're not. So I think those three things are really quite key, and will cover off anything that you could do with money.
Yep. And that brings back to what the third thing was, which was being genuine. Customers can see through when you're just trying to sell them stuff. Now, being genuine, and to the example that we talked about with how you can develop a distinctive branding, is just developing a distinctive community, and being a leader in that. And shoppers are largely loyal to communities or groups that they feel a part of, and they want to hear about the why rather than just peddling stuff. So if you start to share your philosophies, your products, how you might give back to that community, support their interests, celebrating what they do, that makes you something quite special. And all the best signage in the world can't replace that. So that is certainly something you can do. What I would add is that if you have a store, it's an asset. And your signage is a large billboard for your business. So I would try and find a way to make sure that it does do a great amplification of who and what you are. Mm-hmm. The next question we have is, I'm being approached by social influencers asking me for free food and meals. Who are these people, and does anyone even care about them? In a tiny market such as New Zealand, should I do businesses with them? Well, I reckon if you've got social influencers asking for free food and meals, they're probably the really shitty social influencers, because and they're just desperate and hungry. So no, don't do any business with them. However, in saying that, there are some incredible social influencers, especially micro influencers, and they do matter in communities such as New Zealand. Now, if you think about it, rather than influencers, it's around word of mouth. And if they're people who are going to be developing positive, strong word of mouth for you, they're worth engaging. But you come back to your rules about being genuine and authentic and relevant. And that's how you choose which social influencers you want to work with, and just ignore those ones knocking on your door for free stuff. If you've got free stuff, send it to me and Lisa. We'd love it. Okay, I'm going to say the next question, but I'm not sure I understand it. So Vince, if you're out there, if you can help us. It says, perhaps it's time for the New Zealand retail and hospitality sectors to decline these opportunities, as the market in New Zealand is so tiny and the effort could be better spent on a better in-store experience, or take the time to create your own community of followers. I wonder if that relates to the previous message. It sort of sounds like it does. I think we've covered that. Yes, absolutely. You need to create your own community. You need to engage with them. You need to talk to them, and don't just ask them for their money all the time. You need to give as well as receive. And that is the right retail ecosystem, because it's about a relationship that lasts a lifetime. Sorry, I'm just going. Oh, thank you. The vegetarian burger, by the way, was called the Rebel Whopper. One of the most innovative things that has come out of Burger King. And I can tell you in a cone of silence that it really performed for them, and they were back up to where they needed to be. Uber Eats takes approximately 30% of the retail food sale. Now that times are tough, what can be done not to rely on Uber Eats deliveries? Lisa, do you want to handle that one? Or do you want me to?
My screen just changed, so I'm just now reading chats, and I actually wasn't listening to you. So okay. Yeah, you answer it.
I'll answer that then. So you're right. Uber Eats taking 30%. I think they moved down 5%. Bastards. We've all got Uber Eats on our phones because it's easy. It's easy, and it's got a depth and breadth of range of people we want to engage with. What do we need to do? Look, there's a number of things that we need to do. Collaborations might be one, with people who have got excess vans on the road. I know the guys from Juicy were doing some interesting things. There's another network of couriers that are also, so it's finding those right collaborations. If you Google, you'll find them, or you create your own network as well. Now that's going to be a little bit difficult. We've got a bit of controversy in the market around how much restaurant brands are paying their drivers. So it is a bit of a balance. 30% is a rip-off. It's not worth it. They might say that they do a whole lot of advertising for you for that. So, but 30% in retail food is a lot. We have some, but here's another pivot might be is, do I need as many shop fronts? Do I have ghost kitchens instead? And then that might work. So there's a different, there's a couple of different ways to think around our new normal. We know that with Uber Eats, there were some businesses that did incredibly well off it, but they didn't need their shop fronts, in which case a ghost kitchen would work particularly well. Now, that looks like all the questions that I can see. Have I missed anything that anyone has? No. Well, thank you, Snap Delivery. Someone just reminded me, is the guys that have done an incredible job. They did their collab with Barrow Foods, and it was outstanding seeing the guys in there and keeping. I think there's one thing that we do need to think about, and if you can hear that scratching, my dog has just come into the house. The one thing that when we talk about collabs is we're in New Zealand and we are little. And we need to work together. And this is the time where the big guys put their hand out to help the little guys up. It's the time when, if I'm a small jeweler, I find someone I might be able to co-share this space with. It is the time for us actually to come together as a fraternity, rather than pull apart and just keep a little cuddle around the information that we have. So we're going to be sharing the visit with a lot more slides of what we saw out of the market. We're already working with a number of retailers on right-sizing their business. I'd encourage you all, and we're going to set up groups just to share. We need to talk. We all need to amplify our businesses together. So thank you so much, and I'll hand back to Sarah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Juanita and Lisa. That was fantastic. Some really great tips in there for people to sort of take away and ponder. And please remember, Juanita and Lisa are part of Retail X, so if you need some specific help, then that's what they're there for. So I see it's now on 12 o'clock, and I'm sure everybody needs to get off and get into their work or have some lunch. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here and supporting these webinars. And like me, I'm so looking forward to really getting out there and getting back into the shops. So I did feel I had that bit of fear last weekend, and I was a bit sort of nervous. But yep, I'm going to head in there this weekend and visit some of those shops. And like what they have said, I think just keep it all genuine, authentic, and nothing beats customer experiences. People will always come back to the retailers that they love. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next week for webinar 5, where we'll be talking about stocks and costs and streams. So looking at how to manage merchandise and product stock management when your cash flow is tight, looking at creating new revenue streams. So we have John Durand from IE Retail and Sam Shoshana from a CEO of Paper Plus joining us next week. So we look forward to seeing you then. So in the meantime, go well.